In this example, I'm excited to share with you a use case where we can create a website that has functionality with it. We'll create this website that has a meeting form where a user can submit that form to request a meeting. We'll have a payments form, and I'll show you how we can customize it all within WayScript. Let's get started. Starting out, to create any website, we'll just need to host a server. WayScript will take care of the hosting, so we just need to create the server. We'll click on New Layer, and we'll use this template here, Flask, as a framework, and we'll name our layer. Once you name it, we will click on Create, and that will create this layer with a template already built in that we can use. Don't worry, I will explain all this code, and the finished products code will be on GitHub too if you just want to go and copy it and use it for yourself. Once our layer loads, you see that we're already given endpoints, and this is because our server is already hosted. So how hosting in WayScript works is a deploy trigger. This one has already been set up for us since we're using a template, and we'll click on test. After refreshing, you see that our server is already hosted for us. So now we just have to create all the functionality that we want, and we can do that by going back into WayScript, clicking this develop tab, and going into these files. Our app.py will be where our server logic is held, and then our templates will be our HTML pages. Let's go ahead and create the logic, our app.py file first. So I will already have some code, and this code, like I said, is on GitHub, so feel free to copy it from there, and we'll paste it in. Talking through this code very briefly, what we're doing is we have an import for Flask, and we're using that import to render templates, and this request import will be so we can get information from our forms that a user submits. Anytime you need a new web page of your website, then we would create a new route, such as this one. This is the home page, and then put the ending URL on it. So this one will be at our base URL /book meeting. Then we put in the logic that we want to have happen when a user goes to that endpoint. In this case, we're just rendering templates, but later on you see that at a submit meeting endpoint, we get information from the user, and then we can use that information within this logic. We'll talk about that more once we create the form, but for now, it's just important that you know how to create web pages doing a process that looks like this, and then we'll render these templates. So let's create those templates. Templates in a Flask server go in a templates directory, and that's where Flask automatically looks, and you see we have an index.html. We don't need this, but just to show you what it looks like this. So now to create new templates, we'll need a matching one for each one of these endpoints, and I will create those, load that code in, and we'll talk through the steps on each one, how we can customize it, and I'll show you what I've done. So dragging and dropping these files into my templates, we'll give it just a second to load all of those in. So in creating websites, there's a lot of different packages that we can use in order to build websites very quickly. In this scenario, I'm using Bootstrap, and that's helping me build elements on my web page so I can build those pages quicker and make them look a little bit nicer than if I was doing it myself. In my base.html, what I'm doing is setting this up as the base file, and then I'm extending off of that. What that means is elements that I want on every web page will go in here. So I want all of my CSS and JavaScript that I'm importing to go into every single file within my website, so it's included here. Next, I have my home page. So like I said, I'm extending from that base.html, and in this homepage, I'm just putting information that I want to display. I'm also including my nav bar with links, such as to my payments form and my contact form. But other than that, it's just information that I want to share with my customers. And finally, I have a meeting.html. This will be the HTML file that a user would interact with to book a meeting. And as you see here, it's just a form. And on form action, I'm going to send this information as a post to my submit meeting endpoint. This is important in what we were talking about earlier. Each one of these form inputs, when this form is submitted, this action is going to happen. So a post request with this information will be sent to my app.py submit meeting endpoint. And from there, we can do all sorts of interactions with it. We can get that information and we can send it to Slack. We could get that information and send it to a Twilio account to send out text messages to whoever needs it, and a lot more. Once we're done with this meeting form, we also have a payments form. Most forms are pretty similar, and we're doing the same thing with this one. So once a user submits this form, we can get the information and do something with it. Entire industries are built around payment services, and there's quite a few, so we won't cover any specific ones in this video. But if you already have a Stripe or PayPal system set up, you could just send users off-site to access that form and put in their payment information. That's all our templates. Now let's see it in action. So what we want to do is use that trigger that came with the template, and we'll click on test. What this will do is deploy our new application. So all we have here is we already had the template code. We uploaded it, and now we can click this test button to get it deployed. So it's a pretty quick process. And as you see, my website is not the prettiest, and that's just because I'm using templates from online. I have all these templates linked down below too, so if you want to pick a different one and use it, then feel free to. But as you see, this is the home page. We have a few different bits of functionality here that we can use that we already talked about. So this book a meeting button will take us to our book a meeting form. And like I said, when a user submits this information goes into our Flask backend and we can do something with it. Going back, we also have a template payments form where a user can submit their information, and the same thing happens here. We could get information back to our Flask backend and do something with it, including connecting it to Stripe or anything else. And that's pretty much all it takes to deploy a website on WayScript. I want to leave you with a few ideas here. So there's a lot of functionality that we haven't touched on that is WayScript specific that we can use. A cool thing here is we already have 2 different environments set up for us. This is a pretty standard practice in web development. However, our hosting service usually doesn't have this built in for us, which is pretty cool. So all of this code changes you may have noticed have been going to our dev endpoint. What we can do is we can deploy this to a production endpoint and have 2 different versions of the site. That means we can make all of our changes in a dev one and push it to a prod state whenever we need to. This is awesome for testing and building our application while also still servicing customers on a live site. Another cool thing is if we want to use this code as a template and publish it so other people can create these websites very quickly too, it is very simple. We can publish this, and then this link will be the clone where we can just clone it to any workspace within our WayScript account. So this is super cool because that means that I can create this once, and then anyone I want to share this with can get access to it and then clone the same thing to their account, making these very quick. Of course, there's a ton more functionality built into WayScript, such as logs, reporting, and a ton more. But I don't want to make this video too long. So if you have any questions about that, there's resources linked down below. And if you have any questions about this layer and anything we've done in this tutorial, please let us know and we'll be happy to help out too. Until next time.